Simon, thanks for doing this. How's the mood in the camp after relegation was confirmed at the weekend?
Yeah, I think obviously we've got, there was a period of time where I'm sure that it hurt. The players, it's that thing that when something's potentially going to happen to when it actually happens are two different things. But, it was, obviously it was, from the outside world, maybe it was getting to a point that we knew it was inevitable. But still, when it happens, there's an element of pain and hurt about it. And, the overriding theme was that we wanted to finish, stay in the hunt and finish the season as well as we can. But of course, when it was confirmed on Sunday, it was a difficult one, and the players were hurting and we were hurting, and that's what you would expect.
When did you hear that you were stepping into this role?
So obviously the club made the change on Monday, so I was informed on Monday that they would be making a change Monday morning, and and obviously was instructed that I'd be taking the team to the end of the season.
I know you've been in the camp all the way through, but thinking back to when you took charge in December, how does the mood compare to when you took charge back then and the situation you've inherited?
Yeah, I guess really it was. I had a feeling that last time round it would be, far more of a temporary situation in terms of, the immediacy was probably days rather than weeks. So for myself, this time obviously we're talking more weeks than days, which once again, in spite of the difficult circumstances, I'm super proud and honoured to do that, but also, very conscious of the fact that, it's. There's a job to be done in terms of re-establishing the group's identity moving forwards and trying to grab that feel-good factor back, but alongside the realism of there's a reality that we have been relegated now, but we've still got 7 games to go. So very different situation to where I was at Christmas, where it was a couple of games. So I think although that taking one step at a time in these situations is probably how I work. I guess really my outlook is slightly different, that I'm going to have a longer period of time to work with the guys. So, my natural processes will kick in terms of working with the guys, using my intuition to sense where the mood's at, where they are emotionally, and try and do my very best with them and with all the great people around me at this club to finish the season as well as we can.
Did you say they're re-establishing the identity is the sort of remit?
Yeah, and I think really it's more from that point of view. I feel like the confidence. I think it was when you're, it's natural when you're not picking up the results that we all hope for and working hard for. Confidence can become an issue. So for me, less about identity and style, but more about our confidence as a group of players and a team of people going into these games. So, that was in the forefront of my mind, and we've had some really positive conversations over the last couple of days as a group and a whole, and we've got to pull together. And I'm confident that we will pull together well, and we want to finish the season, enjoying our football, giving something for people to get behind as well. That's important, and going about our work in a positive environment, in a positive way that we believe can still get some results.
The game against Fulham, the one Premier League game you took charge of, you clearly tightened things up at the back. You picked up a Premier League point. You've got a 1 point per game record, which is pretty good compared to previous managers. What is that the blueprint for these 7 games again?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I think we have to find the balance. I think I mentioned last time that I think good teams have good balance. And of course, you're always, weighing things up tactically and, technically, and finding the blend of personnel for the next fixture, running alongside your key principles more wholesomely and overall for a team. But I think, without any shadow of a doubt, there has to be an element of our team which is extremely difficult to beat. And one thing for certain, if you do deliver a clean sheet, you're going to get something out of the game. And of course, that's always a priority for myself as a coach. And yeah, something that we'll definitely be, trying to build on, establish and maintain in the next 7 games.
You've got Adam Lallana alongside you. How's he taken to the role?
Yeah, look, really, really lucky for myself to have Adam help out at the moment and step up. He's, his experience speaks for itself. You know, the football experience he had as a player at the very top, you know, the trophies he's won, the environments he's been in. So for me, it's an unbelievable asset to have working with me, and already we're working really well on what we're doing. So I'm incredibly grateful to have Adam's football wisdom alongside me, and his personality, and he's a super person for me to be able to rely on over the coming weeks.
And have you seen any change in him in that, one day he was one of the players, he was their mate, now he's sort of bossing them about? How's he gone around that?
Who told you he's bossing them about?
Men, enough times to know that he'll be bossing them around as a teammate.
Adam's a smart guy, and he's got great relationships in there, and obviously there's a respect that he has off the players in there and off everyone in the building. So, but there'll be no, other than his grey training kit not red. I think it's an advantage for us that he's got the feel of that dressing room, and he's got the ear of that dressing room, and the trust, more importantly. And for someone like me in this situation, that's an incredible thing for me to be able to draw upon.
You're up against Villa this weekend. What did you make of them last night? What are you expecting from them at the weekend?
Yeah, a team, before last night's game, on a really good run of form, very, very organised. I mean, in terms of what I know about, Emery, the manager, that his organisation levels and their athleticism and ability to, win games of football is right up there in the Premier League. So we know we're going to have to be organised ourselves. We know we're going to have to be at our best. But we can also look forward to it, and a personal, incredible challenge for me and my staff, and another really exciting challenge for the players to bounce into this game, and we can bounce into this game and, have the attitude that we want to be set up right, we want to get things right, but we want to compete against an excellent team that we know are going to have their traits, because of the qualities of their manager.
How's the squad in terms of injuries? Have you lost anyone this week? Have you got anyone coming back from
No, we've got a fairly clean bill of health at the minute. There's one or two. Charlie Taylor's sort of knocking about with one or two issues, but other than that, we've got a fairly clean bill of health going into this game.
Watch you back?
Yeah, Paul's trained. Paul's in and around it. It's still one or two that we're assessing and ongoing, and Paul's one of them. But we're hoping that the signs for that are looking good.
And are there any players who've said we're relegated, there's nothing to play for, count me out for the rest of the season, or is everyone sort of focused on?
Absolutely not. No sniff of that whatsoever. I think the group understand that when you initially move through that, the hurt and the disappointment you spoke about Sunday, the group's professionalism kicks in. They know there's a job to be done. They know that we've got to play for the fans. We know we've got to do our very, very best. It has to continue. We have to aspire to be extraordinary, in what we do in spite of relegation. That's the nature of our job. That's the nature of where we're at. We're playing in one of the greatest leagues, if not the greatest league in the world, according to lots of opinions. And we're not going to get away with turning up and not being wholeheartedly committed to the job. And I can absolutely guarantee every single conversation, every single feeling I'm having, that every single player in there, wants to finish this season as strong as we can for this football club.
And just one player who can be extraordinary, Tyler Dibbling. He's not hit his highest levels in recent weeks. How do you get the very best out of him?
Yeah, I think that's my background of working with younger players. I think it's important that we keep perspective. This is a young player that's played, has had an incredible season. An incredible season overall in terms of the minutes played, in terms of his contribution to the games. And 18, 19, this is a young player we're talking about that has had an awesome season. And there's going to be dips, there's going to be ups, there's going to be noise. So for me, it's about Tyler's the same as the rest of the squad. Train hard, work hard, play hard, bring your attributes to the table, and enjoy your footy. Basically, I think that's important that we have to be, as long as we're doing them things underneath it all, you're allowed to enjoy your football, and that's what I'll be saying to Tyler. And as long as we're honing in on the things that are important, that contribute to performance, that's how we'll be working. So for me, that it's a natural process, and Tyler will be part of that process.
Best of luck, Simon.
Thanks very much, appreciate it.
Simon, we've had the players that were often picked by Russell, then we've had the players that came in from the colder bit and were picked by Ivan. How much of a challenge is it to now utilise the whole squad maybe and mesh it together and get that balance right?
Yeah, I think there's again the word balance. There's a group of players there that are vying for a place. I think everyone. It's a special thing pulling on a shirt and playing a Premier League match. And I don't think there's many that just get to a position that they can take it for granted. So for me, the group of players that they're all pushing. So and what that offers me is the ability to, choose from a squad of players depending on what the task in front of us is. So, what that looks like, whether that's players coming in or coming out who, some have played 30 games, some might have played 8 games. But, of course, I'm going to be continually assessing that and looking at it and basing a team selection based on the fixture in front of us. So, there's certainly no, he's playing, he's not, and that's that, and that's that. It's not a black and white situation from that point of view. And there's opportunity for the players to train hard, play well, earn your shirt.
And in regards to that, and you've talked about, how playing in the Premier League and for the club is a massive thing.
Huge.
How big do you think the disconnect is between what the outside world thinks about this team that's cast away at the bottom of the table and how much they're trying, and also when I speak to players or people around the club, they'll say it's a good group, but the two, it's got to be somewhere in the middle. I mean, the two can't all be right at the same time, but I think maybe from you having been inside the camp for so long, maybe you have a really good opinion on this group of players and how they might be miscast by people.
Yeah, again, I think it's when you're not in deep with a situation, that people will make a judgment based on their perception of these things, and that's natural and that's fair. And we're all in this industry, understanding that people love having their opinion on football and football teams and the team they love and support and travel, or the media or pundits, whatever it might be. But I do think there is it is critical that as a professional in this environment that we remain focused, we remain driven on our job. And it's a lot of it is largely about, I'd say to the players, it's about the person looking back at you in the mirror, and it's us making sure that we're comfortable with what's looking back at us. We know we're doing everything we possibly can. Nobody can get everything right, not every team can get everything right, and I think this year in the Premier League we've seen even some of the the greats of Manchester City, they've struggled with results at times. So, when that's taking place, it's natural that people are going to, ask questions and have their opinion on what it is. But it's also highly important that we as a group of professionals within our four walls stay focused, look at understand what, we need to do in order to do everything we can to win games of football and perform well and keep people with us. Yeah. And, whether that's about outside opinions or whether that's about us, I don't think unfortunately in the four walls or in the team you can focus too much on what may be happening externally, and I think what we've got to do particularly over these next 7 games is pull together, and I think if we pull together well, I think other people will pull with us, and that's my hope, that's my sincere hope over the next 7 games.
A lot of that will maybe depend on how the players perform at home between now and the end of the season, because that's where the majority of the fans will be at games. And what you did at Fulham was right. You got a point away from home in the Premier League, and I'm just wondering whether you had to be braver at home because it's been such a bad run, and whether the shackles of not worrying about relegation can come off and the players can go at sides and at least get on the front foot, or is there an absolute serious balance of let's look at how good the squad actually is against top sides and be sensible?
Yeah, I've had a bit of that this week. You're just going to go and play now. And then obviously the coach and the professional and me will look at it and go, well, playing against a team that's just played in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. So we need to find that balance and get that right. And, and again, really it comes down to approaching the next 7 games as professional as, in my opinion, as if it was the first 7 games of the season. That's certainly how I'll be approaching this, that, this isn't the last 7 games and we're relegated now and, we're going to roll on with, light-hearted, what will be, que sera. This has to be, we're building momentum into next season. That's important. And you mentioned the fans. I mean, for me, I had some of the greatest memories in my life of being in football stadiums as a supporter. When I talk about the team's self-esteem and, what we represent every week, and it's hope, isn't it? I can certainly remember when I was a little boy, some of the days I had at Wembley supporting my local team. I remember them forever, and we can represent, a lot of hope for people. Every Saturday they turn up, might have their pint with their mates, go to the game with their dad, see their friends, enjoy their football, want their team to win and go home feeling good in what can be quite a difficult world at the minute. So for us, for me, if we can turn up at our games and win them games and give people them moments over the next 7 games, for me, that's what it's all about. And that's what we want to give people. And I sincerely hope that happens, and I believe with what we're going to do and how hard we're going to work, that will happen. But also that's about connection, and one thing I know I am on the inside, and it might sound a bit cliche, but that we are giving and have give everything, and we will continue to. And with that, I hope comes the results and the points. But also for me, most importantly, is that we give some people some days that they enjoy. We give some people that moments that they enjoy, moments that they remember. A last minute win, a good win, holding on to a point, holding on to a win in the last 5 minutes. They're the best things in football, in my opinion. And that's what we're going to aspire to do over the next 7 games.
Maybe the best chance of beating Villa, given how deep their squad is, despite playing in midweek, is that did kill them the 3rd goal a bit, and that they're a bit slow to start against you on Saturday because they've come back from Paris overnight last night or whatever. They haven't got long to turn around. How important is it to start that game fast? How is it to actually just not let them sit in their own tempo early?
Yeah, I think that again, that's a perspective, and I think what I have to do, it's not about we're going to start this way or that way, or I've got to find the most intelligent way to start the game of football. We, as a group of players, and we as a group of staff, we've always got to, not get drawn into at times what the emotion might be or what the hope elsewhere might be. Our job is to have that calmness and find the most intelligent way to win the game of football. That is the nature of it, and within that, the players will play the game. And there's always has to be that freedom that they see the moments and they can use their energy, and the fans will come with that. I think of the second half against Liverpool in the cup we play, and I felt that. I felt that energy, and I felt the group, had that bit of freedom at the right time. So, less about fast or slow or block, or it's more about what's the most intelligent thing we have to do here, what's the most professional thing we have to do, and that's what I'll always bring it back to.
Obviously, we've worked with Adam, some of us, for a very long time over 2 different spells in the South Coast. And what I noticed last summer speaking to him a lot was how he's grown into this really focused, incredibly strong views on football and his professionalism. Do you see him as a future manager at the top level of the game? Do you think, when I know he's been doing his coaching things, but do you see him as that sort of personality that can command at some point in the future down the line?
Yeah, well, I think one thing is unquestionable is Adam's football knowledge, and his enthusiasm for the game. So, whether I see or Adam sees himself as a manager, that would be for him to touch on. I've, part of my roles in the past have been working with players who have recently, retired at the top and are starting their coaching journey. So that would be another process for me to enjoy. It looks simple putting the cones down sometimes, but even the simple things can feel complicated when you've never done it. So yeah, look, what I do know is Adam's got an unbelievable thirst for football, and his knowledge and his experience, are going to, leave him with a whole host of options, I believe.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
We'll move on for 10:30.
Thanks, John. Just on Adam, is he available to you as a player? I know he wears a grey shirt, but is he still available to you?
Yeah, Adam's at the minute he's stepping in, he's helping up in the short term as as a coach. That's his priority. Anything else other than that is not really decided. I think that's up to Adam how he feels towards the end of the season. But the immediacy for Adam is he's helping me out in terms of preparation and training. So everything else will probably be a natural process for him.
Understood. Ross Stewart hasn't played football in a long time, and obviously came on at the weekend. I imagine for him that, I know he's been here before and he's made his comeback a couple of times now, but it's still an important moment for him. Has he reacted to that okay, so physically and mentally this week?
Yeah, of course. Look, we're all aware that he's had a really difficult time, and it's not easy for a player to go through that, and incredibly frustrating. I've experienced it myself, and it's it's a difficult thing to go through. Putting everything to one side, and you can't do the thing you love, and so number one is it's great to see him back on the football pitch, genuinely, and I think we're all really heartened to see that. And his reaction's been good. He's training well. I think he's growing in confidence. I've enjoyed seeing his work on the pitch. And hopefully long may that continue.
You've obviously got other bigger priorities to get a couple of points first and foremost, but as many as you can get, I suppose, in 7 games. But last time we were here a couple of years ago, there was 3 academy players who made their Premier League debuts for Southampton. Do you think we could see something like that again in the next 7 games?
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. Again, but there'll be no gimmies. You know, the native. We're going to say across the board that as a club we remain at it and we remain professional and focused. Then that process needs to be throughout. So yeah, we've definitely got 1 or 2 lads that are chomping at the bit. I'm not one for naming names, as you would understand, but it's certainly not beyond the realms of possibility.
How impressed have you been with what Cal have done, and obviously Matty for the 21s in the last couple of months since you've moved on?
Yeah, brilliant. I think that's it's a nice thing at a football club to see that when you've got smooth progression, and it's not just that players have got a bit of a pathway that staff have too. I think it's a nice thing, nice continuity. And they've done great. They're finishing the season really well, the 18s and the 21s, and that's nice to see. And it contributes, it contributes to that feel-good factor that we're after and we want. And hopefully they can finish the season as strong as possible. But yeah, they've done really, really well.
Simon, I know you're not one, as you say, to sort of speak about the young players and try and put pressure on them, but we heard the other day about Jay Robinson now stepping up to the first team. Not asking you to sort of hype him up, but what can you tell supporters about him as a player? What can they maybe expect if they have to see him? People who haven't been able to see him for the 21.
Yeah, I mean Jay's someone. He's got that creative nature to his game. I think he can make things happen. He's got some. He's also someone who works hard. I think he's only a young guy. I think he's 18. He's just got into the England's under-18 squad as well and been in around that. So it's a nice, strong end to the season for him, and he's one we've got high hopes for. But in terms of Jay's creativity, really, he's someone that can duck in pockets and receive the ball well, and hopefully continue to make really good decisions in possession that become threatening moments. So that's where Jay's at the minute, and obviously he's got to just keep his head down, keep working hard, and maybe he can carve that opportunity for himself.
We know obviously that Adam's assisting you. Can I ask who else is sort of in your coaching staff? Are you still working with people who are here under Ivan as well?
Sorry?
Are you still working with the people who are under Ivan in your coaching staff? You obviously know about.
Yeah, obviously there was Ivan and his immediate staff obviously left the club. So we've got myself, we've got Adam with me, we've got Benji down the list, we've got Dina. So pretty much the same set of staff other than Ivan's immediate staff.
You mentioned Charlie.
And Carl Martin as well.
You mentioned Charlie Taylor as well. So what's the situation been with him? I don't think we've seen him since I think December was the last time he played. Has he been struggling with injuries, or was it selection? Yeah,
there's been a few bits and bobs with Charlie in terms of maybe he wasn't quite in the Ivan's plans at the time. In and out of in the training group, couple of little knocks. So again, great lad, great professional. And hopefully the next few days we can see him back out on the grass.
And Ryan Fraser as well, is he someone who's fit and available to play?
Yeah, Ryan's trained this week and trained really well, so that's positive as well. And again, that it's the nature of the beast. When you've got a squad a certain size, there's so many shirts that are available on the Saturday, and but again, Ryan's trained this week really well, and it's good to have him in around the group at the moment. Yeah.
Thanks, Simon.
Okay. Simon, hi. There'll be some players and some things at this club who it's the second time they're going through relegation from the Premier League in just a few years. How are those figures specifically, first of all, and have you been leaning on them at all to kind of get through this period this week?
Not particularly. I mean, as I said last time, I have had brilliant support generally. The players' reaction, I'm very grateful for. The energy has been really, really good from the players, and it's good experience. And you're right. There's some really Carl Martin's been here a long time on the coaching staff. And I think what it does, it can enable that hope that we can bounce back. This club has had to bounce back in the past, and so in turn we know that we can bounce back again. And there's people in and around the building that have been experienced that. So of course, without me having direct conversations around that, but I feel it. I feel that there's people here that respond in the right way. And that's what's important now, that we respond in the right way. And of course, as you allude to, we've got people in the building that know how to make that happen, a catalyst for it.
You've spoken very positively about how you feel the mindset is and the mentality is in the dressing room at the moment. Can you kind of, in your opinion, explain, I suppose, why results have been so disappointing this season if kind of the mentality hasn't really been an issue, as you suggest?
Yeah, well, I think that there's the obvious one, that the Premier League is an incredibly competitive division now, and You know, we look at how the top 8 is chopping and changing. You know, you've got teams before who may well have been, you know, expecting a relegation battle and now pushing for Europe. You know, pushing in around that mid-table. So, you know, I'm not an accountant. You know, so I don't know what the finances have done to the game in terms of how over the last 2-3 years, you know, other teams have been able to enhance their squad. So it's tough. It's a tough division, and no two circumstances are the same. You know, yeah, we haven't. Of course, the results speak for itself. There's no hiding away from that. You know, we're all incredibly disappointed, but equally, it's not for me to give a black and white answer about why we finished where we are at the moment. You know, but I think it's more important of my job is to enable the response to where we're at the moment. So, but what I can say is that the level of competition in the Premier League, and there's no hiding it, is there? That I think the 3 that come up last year were the 3 that have struggled. You know, there's no hiding that, and I think it was similar the year before. So, you know, again, whatever the financial rules are, I'm not aware. It's not for me to do. I'm a football coach, but I think there's no doubt about it that managing that gulf is becoming difficult, clearly, based on the evidence.
There's always been a lot of talk about getting past 11 points, and I appreciate in the grand scheme of things it doesn't really matter whether you do or don't, but it is something that people are talking about, and it is something that fans will care about. So how much of a motivating factor is it to get past Derby's record? Yeah,
and look, I understand it. And again, it's no two situations are the same. You know, Derby's record, how many years ago? 15, 20? I'm not sure what year it was, but so, you know, it's no two seasons are the same. Again, the Premier League now to what the Premier League was then are very different animals. But, you know, of course it's a factor, and it's something that we're aware of. But again, you know, I believe, and it's a personal belief of mine, that, you know, what defines us is about how we go after it. You know, if we are training well every day, and if we are committed, and if we are motivated in the right ways, and we're trying our best to do the right things at the right time, you know, then I believe the byproduct of that we'll get the points that we need, that we bypass that. But for me, that the defining thing is how we go about this. You know, and it's like every club will have its markers and its targets, whether you're expected to win the Premier League, whether you're expected to challenge for Europa League, whether you're expected to avoid relegation. Everyone's got their markers and their pressures that really, if you like, that we're working towards. So yeah, there's no hiding that we want to get past that points tally. But for me, it's very much about taking one game at a time at the minute and making sure we're doing everything right and everything within our power to get them points. And I believe if we do that and do it well, that we will take care of that.
Can I also just ask about Aaron Ramsdale? It's been reported today that West Ham will be considering a move him this summer. What can you say about that?
I have no idea. Rambo trained brilliantly today.
Yeah.
Simon, just on that sort of dynamic of there will be, whenever a club's relegated, a number of players that are a higher level are the ones that, you know, it happened last time, a number of players left after the relegation. Are you going to have any involvement in speaking to the players about that, or trying to manage it, telling them not to wait until the end of the season, or?
Sorry, you say that again?
Are you going to have involvement in sort of the conversations with players that might want to leave? Are you happy for them to start those discussions?
Yeah, no, I don't see that as part of my remit. My focus is on, you know, preparing the team as well as I can, making sure that we're at it and we're engaged, and the staff, we all know what we're doing, and then things will come from somewhere else.
Are you worried that can affect how engaged they are between now and the end of the season?
No.
Not at all?
No.
In terms of the conversations you've had with people higher up at the club this week, I think people have been fairly open and honest about the mistakes that have been made in terms of coming up. Do you feel there's been a change in the understanding of that? Do you feel that they'll be learned from those mistakes? Yeah,
I think it's a natural process, isn't it? Everyone's going to I'm sure going to take a bit of stock and reflect on everything. An organisation like this, you know, like any organisation, that you're going to reflect upon a certain period of time and ask questions of what we could do better, what we did well, because there still will be plenty of things, although it's difficult to see and feel at the minute, that were really good. You know, the academy has produced another unbelievable player, you know, and we've got other ones pushing through. Great win, you know, we can be really positive about that. You know, we've managed to maintain a really healthy professional environment in really adverse situations. But of course, there's going to be reflection, and it's only a natural process that, you know, that we look at what could have been done better across the board. So, but that will take place when the time's right, I'm sure. And again, for me, you know, my remit is to do my best with the team, you know, and all them things around the edges are probably, you know, not for me at this moment in time.
In terms of doing your best with the squad you've got, the conversations you've had this week, and you mentioned Adam having the ear of the dressing room. What's the feedback been in terms of how you can help them maybe lift their mood again, or things that have not quite been right over the past?
Yeah, of course. What I'm not going to do, it's not going to be a finger pointing expedition about what wasn't right in the past. You know, there's a whole host of complexities that are involved in a team performing well and winning games of football. So, for me, you know, I'll be using my intuition and my football experience and my experience as a person, you know, away from football to assess what the group need, but have that conversation. And to be honest, I think some of that needs to stay fairly in-house. I think that's the right thing, the respectful thing to do at the minute, and drive them things forward. So it's not me ducking the question, but I think, you know, there has to be an element of safety around what the players and what the staff, you know, talk about in terms of nitty-gritty. And I think that's right that stays within. But, you know, it's what I can say is that, you know, it's healthy, that there's always honest conversations taking place, and I think we know what we've got to do.
And you personally, there's always immediately there'll be talk of who the next manager will be. Do you have an ambition of using this spell to put yourself in the conversation for next season?
Yeah, again, I understand the question, but like I as a person work best in the present, and that's genuinely I do. I work best in the present. I really enjoy working at this football club. I really, really do. I think it's some great people in and around it. I live in the city centre. I've met so many great people, made so many great friends, and what, you know, what I want to do is my best job for the club over the next 7 games, do my best job for the people that have trusted me with this situation, you know, and nothing more than that is in my thinking at the moment.